A new cabinet, some new faces, but the same mission. Prime Minister Mark Carney will unveil his new cabinet today. CTV News has confirmed more than half of its members will be fresh faces. This new team will be looking down the barrel of a trade war with the United States, as well as the prospect of a recession. Joining us with more this morning is the Globe and Mail's Laura Stone. This is always a fun game, the sort of before time when you get to guess and figure out who and why. There are some new faces we know among the Liberals from this last election, and CTV News has learned former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson and former Quebec Cabinet Minister Carlo Letao will be in cabinet. And there's also some other new MPs, including former broadcaster Evan Solomon, survivor of the École Polytechnique mass shooting Natalie Propo, and former Goldman Sachs executive Tim Hodgson. Who are the people that you are watching for to be announced this morning?
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie. We're sort of watching for two things here. One is who is going to take on those key portfolios that Prime Minister Carney really needs to focus on as he takes on both Donald Trump and also tries to boost Canada as both an energy superpower, something that he talked about repeatedly during the federal election campaign, and strengthen Canada's sovereignty from within through measures such as internal trade, for instance. And he has said he's going to remove those barriers significantly by Canada Day, July 1st. So we're all watching to see who is Carney's finance minister. Of course, many insiders have said Mark Carney will be his own finance minister. He's going to be heavily involved in that file, obviously, with his background. But finance, foreign affairs, international trade, these are all the key portfolios that that the prime minister is going to rely on in these, certainly in these next few months. And then natural resources, housing. These are all really big portfolios. Health, things that maybe are, not the focus right now in everyone's minds, but they're very important to people's lives. And so it's a mix of seeing who those veterans are. And we saw the core group of ministers accompany Prime Minister Carney to that Trump meeting, which were ministers Dominic LeBlanc, Melanie Joly, and David McGuinty. That sends a signal, I think, that those people are staying in cabinet, maybe not in those positions, but in the top positions. Those are clearly people that are close to the prime minister. And then, as you mentioned, half new faces in the cabinet. And so we're going to see people with, I think, a lot of private sector experience kind of being thrust into these top roles that are key to Mr. Carney's agenda.
I want to get to that in a moment, Laura, but first I want to ask you about Chrystia Freeland. She's been foreign affairs minister, deputy prime minister, finance minister, all during the Trudeau government. We know she also has personal connections to Mark Carney. Where could she possibly fit in with this new Carney cabinet?
Well, there's been so many kind of rumors flying about whether Freeland is in or out. Many media outlets confirming late yesterday that she will, in fact, be in. She was, of course, a key rival in the leadership race. But I think we've also kind of seen, certainly when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations and how President Donald Trump views her, he made a point of mentioning during that Oval Office meeting that he doesn't like Chrystia Freeland on a personal level. Whether that impacts Mr. Carney's decision-making or not, I think that's something to watch. Does he put her into a portfolio, if she's kept in cabinet, where she has to deal with the U.S. administration in any capacity? Or is that just like poking the bear at this point with Mr. Trump? And does he want a fresh start? And does he let Donald Trump dictate who these members of his cabinet are? So we'll see if she kind of takes on maybe more of a Canada-focused role right now to take the pressure down, and whether she will be in that inner circle, or she's going to be kind of given maybe a lesser role as Mr. Carney tries to bring in some of these new faces.
Yeah, Carney has pledged a gender-balanced cabinet, but it has been pointed out that most of his high-profile recruits, particularly those with economic or executive experience, are men. How will that factor into his selections? And somebody we haven't talked about, who had Mark Carney out to her riding a few times during this really short federal election campaign, was Anita Anand.
That's right. Anand is certainly one to watch for. I was at one of the events nearby in Oakville, where we live, Anne-Marie, in the west suburbs of Toronto. She has been someone who was going to leave politics, was brought back into the fold. She took on that key portfolio of internal trade. It will be interesting to see if she is elevated or kept in one of these key files for Mr. Carney. I think what everyone's watching for, because Mr. Carney did make that pledge to have gender parity, is it gender parity at the top level? Because we're hearing about this two-tiered cabinet, a core group of ministers with a focus for the government on economics and trade, most likely of under 30 people. And then we're going to have 10 so-called ministers of state or secretaries of state that will be ministers, but they almost support that core team. Is gender parity within the core team, or is it spread out within the junior ministry? So that is something he's going to have to answer for because he made this public pledge.
Laura, really quickly on that point, I think that's language that we're not used to hearing. You know, in the Trudeau government, they didn't have this two-tiered system for the last 10 years. I know in the UK, they do something very similar where they've got the senior and the junior cabinet ministers. But this is an interesting choice. Why do you think he made it?
We have seen it before in Canada, but as you mentioned, it hasn't really been around for quite some time. I think it's about sending a message that the team is focused, that he's not trying to be kind of excessive in how he forms his first cabinet, and he's trying to bolster a core group with even more ministers who will support that minister, and I think send a signal of which files he thinks are the most important. And so we're going to see that core group. There are certain ministries where you of course have to put a minister in place, but then you're going to have this almost support system for those key files. And so obviously that's going to have to be dealing with the Trump administration. That's going to be probably on key economic portfolios for Canada. So I think he's trying to send this message of restraint within the cabinet, that he's not kind of be overblowing the situation. But I think he also kind of wants to reward everyone who has also just fought an election and won and almost handed him a majority. So it will be interesting to see how he offers that support system in the junior ministries.
And in some cases, whether it's looking at someone like Evan Solomon or Anita Anand, they were encouraged to come back to run for the Liberals because of Mark Carney's leadership. Laura Stone, it'll be so much fun when we watch later this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.